Representative Cooper, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for having us here. Thank you for hosting in this wonderful Murraysville area, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just thrilled to welcome Chairman Kell, my colleagues, the esteemed testifiers, and the fellow attendees here today to the 55th Legislative District. Thank you to John Dixon for allowing us to use Redstone Highlands Community's beautiful facilities to host this event. For those of you that know my former colleague who had my position, Representative Bob Brooks, this chapel is named after Bob. And so I hope he shows up. He may show up yet today. But we're here today to address the crucial issue of aging with confidence, focusing on the immeasurable value older people bring to our society and the challenges they encounter along the journey of aging. First and foremost, it's essential that we recognize and celebrate the enormous contribution made by older individuals. Their wisdom, their experience, their diverse perspectives enrich our communities, our families, and our institutions. I found that speaking to the older individuals in District 55 by tapping into their wealth of knowledge and their insight, it can guide us towards making better informed decisions, fostering intergenerational understanding, and ensuring a more comprehensive approach to policy making in Harrisburg. Older individuals serve as a pillar of support for our families and communities. They provide guidance, mentorship, and emotional stability. Their consistent presence and nurturing qualities are invaluable in creating a sense of stability in our rapid changing world. And I want them to know that they're valued, and that's why we're here today. It would be remiss if we ignored the difficulties you encounter when you age, and so that's why we're here, to bring attention and action to it. And so I'm just thrilled that we're all assembled here today. I'm looking forward to the testimonies of our testifiers, and I want to thank our representatives for being here. We want to hear what we can do in the House of Representatives that can help care for seniors and make Pennsylvania a great place for them to live. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. And I am pleased that we are here talking about this issue. We're always focused on how do we bring in people to Pennsylvania, because over the last number of decades, we have seen people leaving Pennsylvania. But what we can't forget is who's here right now in this Commonwealth. And Pennsylvania is one of the oldest by age states in the nation. If not the oldest, the second oldest, I believe. Allegheny County, I believe, is the second oldest county in the nation. And this is something that we have to take serious. As representatives of this Commonwealth, many of us being representatives from Western Pennsylvania, but also representatives across the state. So in today's world, it's a confusing world. Technology, frankly, has gone beyond where I'm at. Let alone where my parents are at, let alone where my grandmother is at. And we constantly have problems with people trying to swindle my grandmother, to swindle my parents, to swindle me, the emails we get. And it's a confusing world, and it's if any and every way that we can help as representatives of this Commonwealth, as representatives of our districts, I think we need to be focused on doing. So I'm pleased to have the group of testifiers that we have here today. Today we have two panels. The first panel is the Senior Safety Panel, and it's combating fraud. We have the Honorable Judge Smale, the Honorable, I believe the official title is the Honorable Nicole Ziccarelli, the District Attorney for Westmoreland County. And we have Mr. Dixon, the President and CEO of Redstone Highlands Communities. If you all could keep it to 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. That is not a hard rule. It's just a forceful suggestion. And Judge Smale, if you go first, the floor is yours.
I'm sorry. I'm out of the 10th District Court out of Westmoreland County. I'm the administrative judge for the Orphans Court, so I handle the majority of guardianships here in Westmoreland County. Guardianships come from Pennsylvania Code, Title 231, Chapter 8014, and it gives you the guidance for what are the requirements to get a guardianship. Oftentimes we have diminished mental health capacity that comes to play, which then affects the estate of the person that is the subject of the guardianship. In doing that, there's a procedure and a petition that are required and that are necessary when you feel that you have somebody in a diminished capacity. There can be those with physical diminished capacity but still have cognizant beliefs and abilities to handle their own estate. So there's a lot of variables in the guardianship, and fraudulent family members oftentimes abuse, misuse, or try to diminish the estate of those that have some confusion in a nefarious fashion. And we need to have the area of aging that often petitions the court. We are obligated to try and find some familial resource to come in and be the guardian if possible. If you are asserting a diminished capacity, there must be medical testimony and or an expert report that is submitted into evidence to establish the minimum determination that that person cannot handle questions regarding their health, their hygiene, medical procedures, a day-to-day living standard, which includes nutrition and ability to dress themselves, go out into the community, and communicate. If there's a failure in any of those areas, you have established and can establish through a medical physician the need for a guardianship. And what I would recommend that the legislature continues to be diligent about is this expansion of telephone fraud, in-person home fraud, where they try to talk people out of their estate and property. And it's not just their money. They're trying to take their vehicles, their jewelry, their furniture, and other items. That being said, from the court's perspective, it's my duty primarily to protect the interest of those people in a diminished capacity first and foremost, and that's what I continue to do here in Westmoreland County.
Thank you, Judge. District Attorney Ciccarelli.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having us here today. And thank you, Representative Cooper, and all of your colleagues that are here. Many of you I know, have known for a while, or are just getting to know. And so thank you so much for your trust in all three of us to be here today and communicate with you. On behalf of the District Attorney's Office, I'm present here today to provide testimony and insight into criminal activity, specifically targeting our aging population. Not only has our office charged and prosecuted crimes against seniors, but we are seeing these scams become more sophisticated and more challenging to apprehend offenders. Today, criminal activity targeting our senior population is ever-changing in creativity and technology, as you said, resulting in difficulty to find the perpetrators and hold them accountable. Oftentimes, it starts with a phone call. The person on the other end states a grandchild or a child was hurt in an accident or may be in trouble, and you need to pay a monetary value to help alleviate the situation. I cannot tell you how prevalent that is in our office. The perpetrators on the other end could ask for banking information over the phone or gift cards as a form of payment. We have even seen these scams go as far as manipulating the relative's voice and spoofing numbers to create a sense of urgency and credibility. It could be a phone call, emails or letters, or social media claiming you won a prize in order to disclose sensitive information or obtain money. Sweepstakes scams, they mimic the look of a legitimate company like Publishers Clearinghouse, and will oftentimes ask people and the potential victim to send money in advance to claim the prize. In recent years, check washing scams have hit area residents and businesses. Offenders will steal a victim's outgoing mail to obtain a check that may be used for bill payments or birthdays. They then wash those checks of the writing and create a fraudulent check in order to make the check payable to themselves and steal from the individual's bank accounts. Other notable trending scams include the Social Security Administration and IRS imposter scam and tech support scams. Victims may be told their accounts will be seized or frozen if they fail to act. This is incredibly frightening for them. Perpetrators often use robocalls to reach victims. Victims may be told to press 1 to speak to a support representative for help. This just adds to the believability of the scam, but the IRS will not call you and ask you for your personal information, and we can't stress that enough. We also see romance scams that can infiltrate the senior population. Online dating sites and social networking could lead to unsuspecting victims to false profiles in order to create and build relationships, which we know that sometimes our aging population is in desperate need for, connections. These perpetrators could then convince them to send money, all in the name of love. We want citizens to be mindful of not only narratives presented by people preying on our aging population, but we also want to share tips to prevent people from falling victim to a crime. If you're not familiar with the person you're communicating with, hang up. If the caller is persistent, hang up and report it to your local police. Never reveal or share personal information over the phone. Requesting a form of payment through gift cards, wire transfers, or cryptocurrency, or asking for Green Dot prepaid cards are usually a very telltale sign that you are being scammed. There are two local cases that I want to highlight from last year. Recently, a Westmoreland County woman was scammed out of more than $150,000 of her life savings. A message popped up on her iPad, a flashing notice with a number to call Apple support. The person on the other end told her that her information and her money was compromised and she needed to send the money in order to correct the issue. The scammers asked for forms of payment in gift cards, totaling $5,000 and $20,000 in cryptocurrency and various Bitcoin machines across the counties, which are not regulated, as you know, and we cannot track them. And $145,000 in wire transfers to a credit union out of the state of New York. The incident was reported to state police, and a specific division of the FBI is currently assisting us in the investigation. Another instance from last year, a New Jersey man was apprehended by state troopers after a potential victim helped investigators set up a sting operation to arrest him. Carlos Polanco Rodriguez pled guilty in May. He showed up to a Unity Township man's home to collect nearly $10,000 as part of an ongoing scam targeting a grandparent. The grandparent caught on to the scam, God bless him, and after he was told his grandson was in an accident in another state, but he knew his grandson was okay. Luckily, state police were called, they were ready and on scene, and that gentleman was apprehended. And he spent nearly a year in jail before being sentenced to 2 years of probation. So that gentleman is currently on probation and not incarcerated for what he did. While our office handles the prosecution of these crimes, we want to make every effort to prevent them. Locally, our municipal police department, which I want to tell you, the Murrysville Police Department is one of our very best in the county. They're excellent. And I talked to the chief. I wanted to let you know what they're doing locally when it comes to suspicious criminal behavior. And a local call to them may thwart a scammer that's trying to get financial gain from you. Right here in Murrysville, the police department has attended Redstone Highlands and the Murrysville Senior Center to discuss scams, so they're trying to be very proactive. They also utilize their social media platform to alert residents of scams right away in the circulating areas, and then you can also contact them just directly if you want or have experienced anything or know of a friend that is, or a loved one. We also work with the FBI, which I think is important to note that we don't just localize everything that we're doing. So we work with local municipal police departments as well as federal agencies, which is very helpful as well. And it's important to note that the FBI has a dedicated division called IC3, the Internet Crime Complaint Center, that receives thousands of calls a day, and they also help with it. The Department of Justice also has a transnational elder fraud strike force that also helps in that regard. But we're all working together collaboratively to help our aging population who has raised us and been there for us and supported us. And I was saying to some of your colleagues, Mr. Chairman, we're all aging, and coming here today, I had to discuss with my staff whether I was going to submit to my glasses or use 26-point font, and you can see what won out at the end of the day. But my grandmother, we recently lost her a couple months ago at the age of 98, and she would always say to me, "Where I stand, you will stand one day." And it's important to remember that, because we, in doing this and through your leadership, are recognizing that we will stand there one day and we hope we're paving the way for a better future for seniors and a more protective way that they can live their lives with the grace and dignity that they deserve. Thank you.
Mr. Dixon.
So on behalf of Redstone Presbyterian Senior Care and our Board of Directors, we're certainly honored to have all you representatives here today. We know that you pay attention to things that are happening with seniors across the state. We know that you meet with our organization, Leading Age Pennsylvania, to address certain issues that are very, very important. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about a story, a heinous situation that happened in our organization. It began back in August when we were alerted that a contract agency certified nursing assistant was at both our North Huntington and our Murraysville campus stealing jewelry from individuals. In fact, took jewelry off an individual's hand. We knew that this was true when this individual went to a pawn shop in North Huntington and sold those articles, so there was video evidence of that individual. This is a challenge that we have sometimes with workforce. Hopefully not a lot, but we do. The problem is when we do background checks, and this is where the rubber really hits the road. When organizations do background checks, charges are not listed, only convictions. And if we had insights in regards to charges to make good employment decisions, it would be better. The individual that did the theft work here at our Murraysville North Huntington campus had been charged, was out on bail for federal mail tampering. Was a post office worker that was terminated, but then connected with a staffing agency. That staffing agency did the background checks that normally everybody does, and of course, the charge didn't show up because it wasn't a conviction. So that individual then started their theft work and other challenges that they wanted to do in regards to taking things from people. So, you know, our ask is to take a look and see what we can do in regards to the law to help us make good decisions. No different than we wouldn't hire anybody to do transportation services if they had multiple DUI charges. And again, not convictions. So those things slip through our cracks. We recently know that Act 128 was put into effect. That was the act that created temporary health care agencies to register. That's very important. We have a staffing agency here at Redstone. We are registered and certified in the state of Pennsylvania. The challenge, though, is that there's no repercussions going back to the staffing agency. So the individual that came from the staffing agency and the theft work that was done here, you know, all of that falls on our shoulders. So all the abuse charges and everything come to us as an organization. So I think that is something that has to be looked at under that act and for improvements. Falls and abuse. You know, there's a lot of things that happen in acute care organizations and post-acute care organizations like Redstone. But just to give you an example of abuse charges, the bar is so low in post-acute care for abuse, it's tough to even operate without getting charges. So if you're an individual and you fall in a hospital, it's a fall. There's no charge for abuse. If you look at the definition of abuse, it's willful. In long-term care, when somebody falls, it's automatically an abuse charge. And, you know, accidents do happen, so I think there's things that we have to pay attention. The other thing I would ask you to look at is where we are with Medicaid rates. Now, I know this is a hot topic, but just to give you an idea of our surrounding states, Pennsylvania right now, the Medicaid rate is $240. Ohio is $270. West Virginia is $385. So when you're talking about quality of care, we need things that are, you know, funded and not unfunded. Even the staffing ratios that are talked about now, that's an unfunded mandate. And just to kind of give you an idea of what's happening to Redstone, our labor costs for the present quarter ending September 2023 has increased 14% or $445,000. Within that same comparison time frame, agency costs has increased 98% or $308,000. This is not sustainable as organizations. That's why you're seeing organizations close, beds being lost in the state of Pennsylvania. Every day for the next 9 years, 10,000 baby boomers will reach the age of 65. The 75-plus population reaches 35 million, and by 2035 reaches 42 million individuals. We will have a tsunami of individuals who will be needing aging services. If we are going to age with grace in this state, we need the funding that's necessary. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to open it up for questions now. Representative Cooper.
Thank you for your testimony. I know scams are a huge issue. We did a scam jam here in Delmont in the 55th, and I know, Nicole, you had sent one of your representatives there to speak. I just wonder if you could maybe just talk a little bit about your office and the resources that you have, because I think a lot of times older folks don't realize what a resource you can be in the county.
Thank you very much, Representative. Our office, I know that everyone's district has a different type of DA's office or is a different class of county, but I know most of your DAs. They're all wonderful and great colleagues of mine, and I appreciate them, and I always ask them about best practices and what the size of their office looks like. But just by way of reference, I've been trying to grow our office because I want to have the most elite, fully funded law enforcement agencies in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. When I started, we were at about 60 staff members. Now we're up to about 70. We have a pretty robust office at full capacity and complement. We have 26 assistant district attorneys, 15 detectives, county detectives in the office, 1 civilian who is now running our first digital forensic lab, which is very helpful in these cases as well. And then the rest, we have a bevy of support staff that really keep the office running, and our victim witness advocates. So there are several different parts of the office that can all be accessible to our seniors, and they need only call the office and ask to be directed to the appropriate person, and they will be, and we will be helpful. We send out county detectives to different facilities like Redstone Highlands and other places in the county frequently, and our assistant district attorneys are there to back them up if they need any assistance with search warrants or anything else they might need. The victim witness advocates are also wonderful and provide a tremendous amount of resources that are in the county already. But it's a nice, easy way. You could call the district attorney's office for so much more than I think people know that they can. And I also don't believe they know how robust we are and how many people we have at the ready to help. Thank you.
Thanks.
Representative Rigby.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, panel, for testifying today. And this is a couple questions, so I'll just ask the questions, and the DA and the judge, if you would chime in on them. One, we talk about the penalties. Are the penalties enough or not enough? Is it something that we as a legislature can address? And then for the DA, to get this conviction, how many complaints versus how many convictions do we see? I had an incident like this when I was a chief, and it was very hard. I, too, turned it over to my DA, who went to the FBI to help with it for a family that was scammed, and never did get to the person. So I'm just wondering, based on the number of complaints that you received, what is the conviction rate? And of that conviction rate, this gentleman that you discussed that was going to the house was out on a probation for a previous incident. So, you know, what do we need to do? What needs to be done through the judicial system to make sure that this isn't happening? And again, what are we looking at percentage-wise when we talk about conviction rate based on these bad actors? Thank you.
Well, Representative, I don't think I have a number right now for you on a conviction rate. We're trying to collect more stats in the office, but it's difficult to track some things. So I can speak from personal accounts of victims of crime in our county and what I notice in general. They're very difficult crimes to prosecute. And if you're dealing with cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, you're at a loss because it's not regulated. And so people lose out on so much. And this is one instance where I believe the prevention of crime, any resources that can be provided to prevent and to inform our seniors of these scams would inure to our benefit more so than what comes down the pike because they're so difficult to prosecute. But we do send out county detectives. We do work with local and federal agencies to try to figure these things out. But when you have a senior that's lost $150,000 of their life savings, they are just devastated, depleted. As you know, I'm sure you have many residents in your district like that. And it's just one of these areas where I think we have to try to get out ahead of it as much as we can with the scam jams and other things like that to try to reach our residents, because once that happens, we are behind the 8 ball a lot of times. And I think that it's also embarrassing for our seniors at times, and they don't want to share or they don't want to reach out for help because they feel embarrassed that they fell for a scam and didn't know it. And we've got to get rid of that stigma because it's happening to everybody, every walk of life, in every community. So the more that we can do to probably make ourselves visible as the DA's office and work with the chiefs to inform the residents, be available when crime does occur, but I think on your end, also informing residents and educating them. And I would probably also encourage you all to, and I'm sure you already do this, speak to as many victims of these crimes as possible, because not in Westmoreland County, but in other parts of the country, you know, people are resistant to punishment or incarceration or consequences to bad actions. We are not here, but I know it's happening other places, and so it's difficult. The one case I mentioned to you, that gentleman was incarcerated for a year and is on 2 years of probation and could very well do it again right now. And so that's troubling to me, but perhaps looking into the victims a little bit more and how much it's affected them and devastated their lives could move the needle when it comes to more harsh penalties for these crimes.
Thank you. From the perspective of the judiciary, with the area agencies on aging, they oftentimes have problems keeping staff for adult protective services, and they're your first line of defense with regard to the civil actions that are capable of the judiciary. The issue with the scammers and the people that are of a criminal background is that there's a recommendation needed for the district judges at the lower court level to consider adding into their bond conditions, pretrial bond conditions, that articulate that they can't apply for nursing home jobs, help jobs, aid jobs in any medical facility while charges are pending against them. And they can, and they are empowered to be able to do that, because they can modify at their discretion the bond conditions of a particular person who's charged under these crimes code circumstances. And also an enhancement for elevating the sentencing guidelines for those convicted of targeting geriatric or diminished people as victims of their nefarious types of crimes and scams. So it's a two-part answer for the court in the orphans court and this complex civil litigation aspect of it. We have broad discretion to restrict people and to put in place guardians and protective services, but they've got to get to the common pleas court level. And the problem is oftentimes it goes through the lower court level or your district judge without the necessary provisions for protection. And then you have what happened with Redstone here when Mr. Dixon said, somebody comes in from a different area totally and comes in with a basic job application, but does not have to articulate, is not required to indicate that there are pending charges out there. But if they are under bond condition to do so, then an additional charge could be filed against them through the district attorney for failure to follow the bond conditions. So there's a couple layered things that could occur that if the legislature got involved, they could either address that through bond conditions, through establishing more funding for area agency adult protective services, or referencing and making recommendations to the various criminal committees and civil committees of the Supreme Court so that we can adjust the rules and make an adjustment for the better protection of these people that are targets in their certain aspects, both if they're independently living or even if they're in care.
One more question. And we talk a lot about the phone scams and stuff. Are you seeing a lot more in the social media? I know a lot of seniors are now the Facebook people. And I had a lady who was befriended, and he got all her information and said that she, he knew all of her friends and these different people, and they could vouch for her. And she called me. She was ready to send them money. And I see more and more seniors are going to social media as they sit around, in the evenings. They talk to friends, and it's a great communicator for them. But I'm just wondering if you're seeing an uptick in social media too.
Yes, I see it across the board. These scammers are very professional and very advanced, but I do think that you're right in that regard, because a lot of our seniors now, they're blessed to have big tablets and they can see the larger font and all of those things. And so technology is right there, and I think that they've really caught up with it. And so now, of course, now that they've caught up with it, now scammers are on to the fact that they're using them more. So I would agree with you. I think we're seeing an uptick in that particular area.
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the questions are layering quite nicely this morning, I have to say. I'd like to first direct my question to Mr. Dixon, digging a little bit deeper in this area of fraud and fraud protections. We've worked with Leading HPA in past years because clean slate laws are a positive thing and a trend to be able to help people reintegrate in the community, but at the same time, it creates a vulnerability without protections, because your threshold of abuse that you had mentioned, and I've personally seen advertisements that law firms will say, do you have this? Has someone fallen? Have you? And they're seeking these lawsuits that get filed, against you. Specifically, when we look at the bonding issue or protections, initial protections, can you touch on ways that we may be able to make some adjustments so that senior facilities, which now are under that unfunded mandate ratio, so you can't bring more seniors into a place like this without having more staff, so you're really squeezed on this side, but the staff you bring in, you may be vulnerable because you can't see things that they may have intentionally hidden from you. So how can we bridge that gap for your organizations?
I think not only for Redstone, but across the Commonwealth would be helpful as we, do background checks. I think that is, our first protective layer that we have out there for us. And then, obviously organizations take people in and they acclimate to the position, but anything that law that can be done to help post-acute care organizations would be extremely helpful. I touched on the staffing ratios and those mandates. I know federally there's a bill that's in there right now to kind of slow that whole process down. I can't recite the bill right now. I know it's 53 something. I don't memorize all of them, but I know that's in place. But even in Pennsylvania, and I can tell you in Westmoreland County, there is a nursing facility that had to take 150 beds offline. And I know from a survey that they had that they didn't meet the staffing ratios. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Department of Health does in that regard. But it's
so trying to prioritize, because we're a slow-moving beast in Harrisburg, particularly nowadays.
Yeah.
And so would it be adjustments to the threshold of abuse? Would it be a civil liability cap in some of those, or like a higher standard? How can we tweak some of the could you prioritize what would be one or two of the top things?
Well, I would say package them all and put it on the bullet train. Yeah, I mean, we're so vulnerable as providers out there all the time, and as I had mentioned earlier, everything falls back upon us in regards to charges. I understand there's going to be some different adjustments in regards to the acute side, as I gave the example of an individual who falls. A lot of falls are not willful acts. So, when you look at it, and I know it becomes politicalized, in regards to protections of seniors, and But when the bar is so low, it creates a lot of problems. And that presents survey issues, monetary fines, all things like that add up. And after a while, it just drains the income out of an organization, and you can't grow, you can't invest. You know, technology is the next big frontier that we're going to be looking at. AI is going to be a big part of that. We use a lot of technology in this organization, not for care yet. Most of it's electronic health records, those types of things. But, you know, any protection and the guidance that we're getting from, you know, our association Leading Age, PA, and then nationally Leading Age is very helpful.
Thank you. And the facility that closed, the 150 beds, what happens to those seniors because we haven't been able to move forward in
Yeah,
these
that's
areas?
a perfect question. So what happens is it becomes more costly to the state of Pennsylvania. Those individuals are caught in a hospital. Hospital costs, daily costs are a lot higher than you know, skilled nursing or at home, if they can even go home. So what we're doing is we're creating a more expensive care point of care in the state of Pennsylvania because there's no place for anybody to go. Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Representative Struzzi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the panelists. I think this is a very big subject to cover in an hour and a half, but I think I appreciate, Mr. Dixon, I appreciate the concerns that you've shared with us, particularly in bullet points. I know we're all aware of these issues, especially the staffing challenges across the board. But are your challenges related to staffing solely based on salaries, or are there other factors that come into play?
Question. So it's a combination of both. One, not having the workforce out there. We are meeting all the staffing ratios, but because of the labor costs that are out there now, it's putting a great strain on a lot of organizations. Just to kind of give you a for instance, we are now talking about raising certified nursing aides rates up to $30 an hour. So we compete back and forth with hospital systems. We were competing against fast food organizations in regards to workforce, but then it's all the qualification process as well. So it's that combination of demand for higher salaries, being able to meet those demands, and then finding the workforce.
Okay, thank you. And then
Yes.
I wanted to build, you mentioned AI, and that was going to be part of my other question, because you have the social media component, you have the robocalls, you know, there's numerous ways for people to be victims of fraud, particularly seniors who you know, are not most technically astute people. Not that any of us really are these days, and I'm close to being at that point myself. But related to AI, and we see this surge of AI concerns and all the different things you can use AI, and some of them positive. And I've heard in some cases you can combat fraud with AI. But the other side of that is, you know, what new scams could come along using AI? And any of you can answer this, but I'm curious, and you mentioned, Nicole, that you have a digital unit within your office. So maybe if you could just talk a little bit about your concerns with AI and how we could use AI in a positive way to maybe combat fraud.
Well, I think that there's a lot of sophistication in that area in law enforcement right now. We were very blessed to receive a grant. I think the grant was a little over $500,000 to establish our own digital forensic lab here in Westmoreland County. So traditionally, smaller counties that don't have their own labs, or even larger ones that don't have new technology, they have to go to the state police or the Attorney General's office to turn over any kind of electronics, cell phones, tablets, laptops, which we see in almost every single case. And they're doing the best they can, but they're tremendously backlogged. They will speed up investigations, particularly when it comes to a homicide of a child, but otherwise you really stand in line for a long time. And to their credit, they do that for us, and we appreciate it. But we now have a civilian analyst in-house in the Westmoreland DA's office with the best technology available to us. And he previously was with the Attorney General's office for several years, was a county detective before that, and was a local chief of police. So comes to us with a tremendous amount of knowledge. This is really his legacy piece, that he's able to establish it. And what we're trying to do locally, Representative, is build a task force across the county where we're using local officers and detectives that have an interest in AI, have an interest in digital forensic labs and analysis, to have them trained in our office by our analysts, and then have them all over the county, so that that equipment, which is very mobile, can go with any of them to any crime scene they may need on site, and they can utilize it. We're in the process now of starting to train and look for officers that are willing to do that, but that's going to be a tremendous resource, because the more people who know how to analyze this equipment, utilize it, and utilize AI to further our efforts in law enforcement, the better.
Thank you.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you all for your testimony. These topics are of particular importance to me, which is why I chose to be on the Aging Committee. So I thank you all for your commitment to this very important population. Judge Schmale, so I have a father with Alzheimer's, and I recently got power of attorney over him and his decisions. He's still functional, but, you know, obviously I know where it's headed. You talked about guardianship. Could you explain the differences and maybe what the advantages or disadvantages are of each of those?
Sure. In reference to power of attorney, obviously, when you got that, he was cognizant, he was able to participate in that process, because a power of attorney requires the decision maker to give up that power to another agent for their life decisions and their financial decisions.
Okay.
So you are in basically the same area or place as being a guardian, because you have done it prior to a condition developing there where they can't make a decision.
Got it.
A guardianship petition is filed for those that have some medical determination that they can't make cognitive decisions, or they're so debilitated physically that they can't function to operate their home or the place that they live. Then you have an issue of, is it divided between the person, and you just become the guardian for the medical purposes and the administration of health and care, and they still have their liberty interest to run their own estate. In the circumstance with your father with the dementia, he can't do either. So you want to petition for guardianship if he's already in that medical condition, because once a doctor makes that determination, you cannot reverse it, because unfortunately with dementia and these kinds of critical conditions, they are maintenance conditions that only worsen. They will not get better. So once there's a determination by a physician or a medical facility that they are incompetent, the courts can't even intervene to try and grant you a power of attorney, either a durable power of attorney, one for the finances or one for the person, because they're not the decider anymore, giving up their liberty. So that's why the Orphans Court Division under Title 55 allows for the guardianships for families that need to step in after certain conditions are developed. And then it's a broad sweep where you become a fiduciary like you are under the power of attorney. But we have the guardian tracking system that came through in 2018 to guard against those people that become guardians, to ensure that all the assets are being used for that person, they're being provided for, and that all those reports are due. Those reports are due annually. They can be filed electronically, and every court system in all 67 counties has a tracking device on those. If you miss a report or your report is deficient, it gets red flagged. And again, the support in the legislature that came through on that corrected thousands of people that were being deficiently taken care of, because nobody had any kind of reporting tickler that would red flag the reports to indicate that assets were being siphoned off or not utilized for their best interest and care. So continuing to be addressing that guardian tracking device, especially when we get AI and other things involved. We need to probably keep looking at that every 5 to 6 years just to enhance those statutory guidelines and requirements so that the new guardians adhere to what the technology will be
Right.
in monitoring those people.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the context of serving on the Aging Committee during my first term in service, I came to learn that I had more senior communities per square mile in my district than any other in the state. And as I thought about why, it became very apparent. We live in a very desirable portion of Delaware County, and people are coming to our end of the county to retire. And it caused me to start rethinking some of these paradigms and stigmas. And I appreciate very much, District Attorney, the mention of the stigmatization of embarrassment when they fall prey to a scam. I underwent some training about generational approaches to things when I was in corporate America. And one of the many thoughts that were left with me was this. Gen X was the first generation to teach in two directions. Every generation teaches their children. That was the first generation to teach our parents about technology. And then we went through the dot-com era, and it wasn't long after that that our parents started getting on Facebook, and at the time that was the only social media platform. They are particularly susceptible to very convincing scams. And it was working through that generational difference that I came to the conclusion, as Representative Cooper did, that prosecution's tools, and I'm a longtime prosecutor also, are extremely helpful on a deterrence front, but more helpful is education. And I wanted to direct my question to you, District Attorney, because I think we have some common ground here if we gave you the right tools. So in the instance of my district of 63,000 people, we are constantly doing robocalls, and I know the irony of that, right? Because robocalls themselves are the tool used by criminals to defraud our seniors. But it's not just our seniors, it's our parents as well. I have a 14-year-old who, when he was 12, doing homework online, hit a link because somebody popped up on his screen and says, if you don't hit this link immediately, you're gonna lose your computer. And being the resourceful young man that he is, he hit the link, and within an hour, with me not home, was on the phone with somebody from across the world and given him access to his computer. Now, he didn't have any financial accounts that he could turn over, but he was only a heartbeat away from doing so. So part of our education isn't just to the senior community. And by the way, with regard to stigmatization, I do think as a policy matter, it is wrong thinking to believe that the senior community is frail of mind. They're just less confident about technology, and that's a very narrow area where we can help them. So getting to my question, what can we do by way of either resources or policy to help the District Attorney's Office, which I believe is the right forum for education of our total community, right? Because Gen X can teach their parents, right. Gen X can teach their children. And I focus on them because we're the ones probably most listening to information coming out from both social media and our government.
Thank you very much. A major concern of mine was bringing this office up to date in technology in a lot of ways since I've taken office. And one of the things we did was we established a Crime Watch platform here in Westmoreland County. I would say if we can collaborate more to communicate about that platform, if you have them in your counties or your county district attorneys using a different platform, we're constantly, one of the positions I was able to create in my office was a public information officer, and Melanie Jones is here with me today. If you're in the local area, yes, she looks familiar to you because she was the Westmoreland Bureau Chief for WPXI for many years, and we're very lucky to have her, but she runs that platform and is constantly putting information out. And we received, as part of some grant funding from Senator Ward, funding to be able to put more of that information out there and get mailers out there. I mean, you mentioned robocalls. Mailers are the same thing. Every scam comes out of a really great idea that worked really well to do good. that turns into something that now does bad. So we want to get mailers out to the seniors because they go and get the paper every day. So I think more collaboration probably between our offices. Sometimes we forget that we can all talk, and talking to your local DAs, I mean, you've all inspired me to sit down with Melanie after this and talk about how we can reach more wonderful facilities like Redstone Highlands, how I can get in there and bring the materials to the residents to talk about Crime Watch or other things that we have. Also, we can work together through collaboration with you and your residents and your offices and facilities like Redstone Islands. I know in our office, I've also was able to create a position of a grant writer, and I offer that to all of our school districts, all of our local municipal police, every facility that helps our seniors. We have to do a better job. If you could help us communicate that message, we're here to help. We're happy to sign off on a letter of support for grant funding. We're happy to help you write a grant to be able to get more money back into the communities. And so I think more collaboration would be helpful. I know Representative Cooper is great at that, and so is Representative Nelson, Dunbar, and everyone else we have here in Westmoreland County. We do communicate a lot, but I think more of that could go a long way. And it's been difficult for us to get Crime Watch really out there and up and running, and there's so much great information for seniors, for young people. We have a robust Handle with Care initiative that I've been working on here, and we're very trauma assumed in our office, trying to get that information out there about what trauma is doing in our communities, because repeated trauma will then eventually create an individual that's going to create repeated crime, whether it's against our seniors or anyone else. So I am very much in line with you that prevention, communication, and getting ahead of it can help us a lot more.
I really appreciate that answer. Thank you very much. And the reason I focus on generational differences is I put a lot of thought into who's receiving our communication effectively. Like, for example, I think almost all of us put out a weekly electronic newsletter by email. The younger generations don't read email, right? I mean, you have to force them to look at an email from their teachers, for example. They want entertainment. They want a 60-second, 30-second video on TikTok or Reels, and they're not. And I just learned they're getting all their news from that format, all of it. They don't watch TV the way we used to watch TV. They're getting streaming services. So I look forward to that collaboration, especially with regard to critical thinking about how we communicate, because the mailer is very effective for Gen X and the boomers. We look at it before we toss it. But you know, my generation, we suspect everybody, right? So we're far less likely to click on a link because we suspect everybody. Our parents are more trusting that when something comes into their digital formats, they can trust it and hit a link and it's going to give them more information, and now they're trapped. The younger generation aren't hitting any links in emails because they're not opening emails, but they'll hit a link in the read more of a TikTok or the read more of a Reels. So I look forward to that conversation, especially as it relates to how do we communicate effectively harms that could come to the world. And a perfect example of that is how to avoid online predators. They're getting that training in school. They're getting that training. How do we help them avoid other social scams? So thank you very much.
Representative Kuzma.
Judge Smale, I would like to elaborate a little bit on Representative Brown's question regarding powers of attorney. So I have 4 cases in the Allegheny County Orphans Court where a power of attorney breached their fiduciary duty to an elderly person. One of those 4 cases, I have a power of attorney that withdrew $224,000 in cash from an elderly person's bank account, and I'm suing them to get the money back. Can you talk about your experience in the Orphans Court as it relates to powers of attorney breaching their fiduciary duty? And Nicole, if you wouldn't mind chiming in and maybe elaborating on what it takes for a breach of a fiduciary duty to rise to the level of a crime.
Well, in the civil level, obviously, it's clear and convincing evidence is the level in the orphans court arena. And when the fiduciary commits an act of theft, it's upon the court to be a mandatory reporter to report it over to the district attorney's office or the law enforcement locally because of being mandatory reporters. But the way we address it is a petition to remove that power of attorney often comes from some sibling or other caring family member or friend of the family. And what we can do is do a preliminary injunctive relief outcome, which stops the power of attorney in its tracks, because oftentimes when that power of attorney was functional, as we talked with Representative Brown, that person was functional, cognizant, entered into it freely. By the time the fiduciary starts stealing from them, their condition oftentimes deteriorates. So when an injunctive relief goes in to suspend any more infiltration into the estate or care of the person, you have to still file a petition for guardianship now, because that person can't be articulate about where they want the power of attorney to go or to what other individual. So you have the ability to get into court on an emergent basis to get relief by discretion through the common pleas court, through the orphans court, to suspend it. Suing them is fine, but gaining a judgment on somebody you can't collect on is your other biggest problem in these kind of orphans court cases, because oftentimes the nefarious fiduciary does not have the resources and has spent the resources stolen from the power of attorney theft from the person's bank account, financial institutions, selling their property. And I've seen all kinds of scenarios. So I think you also, as counsel, would have a mandatory requirement to report it to the district attorney's office to see if they're interested in taking it. And I know in Allegheny County, they may have that's not really probably on the biggest or highest part of their list to pursue, but I do know that the orphans courts judges in your area, and there are a very limited number of them, actually would probably err in caution with a preliminary injunction to remove the authority of that person away from what's left of the estate of the other person and put in place either a corporation or other agent like Distinctive Human Services or another familial individual. Nicole?
Just by way of practicality, it's difficult sometimes to articulate both, but there's the law and then there's the reality of it, which I think is what Judge Smale is articulating at this point. And a lot of times the reality is local municipal police departments will direct people that are dealing with these types of issues to our office. And it's one of the most heartbreaking things I see, and I can see it a mile away, when families come in with boxes and boxes of papers, and they're at their wit's end, and their loved one doesn't have any more money left, and they don't know what to do. And the problem with our court system, and we have the greatest in the world, is that it just takes a really long time, especially on the criminal side, and I would say on the civil as well. But the criminal side takes a tremendous amount of investigation and working with the assistant district attorneys to get to a place where we know whether we can charge or not. And when you deal with the crime of deception, it takes a lot longer. And so I would come back to something I keep saying, and I don't mean to be repetitive, but it's getting out ahead of it. And I know, coming from a DA that prosecutes crime, and trust me, I have an appetite to prosecute these crimes. If it's a crime, we're going to prosecute it. I don't have a list of things that I'm just going to decide not to prosecute. If it's a crime and we have evidence of that crime, and our detectives and attorneys tell me we've got it, then we're going to pursue it and we're going to charge. But it is a lengthy process, and at that point, as the judge mentioned, a lot of the financial resources are significantly, if not totally, depleted. And where do you remedy that? No amount of, incarceration or penalty is going to be able to remedy that for that individual that's lost almost everything, if not all.
Thank you both. That was really helpful. Thanks.
Chairman Dunbar.
Thank you, Chairman Kell. I don't really have a question. I just did want to make a brief comment from what I just heard. I'm very blessed. I have a 93-year-old father that I take care of, but he lives on his own. And sometimes you wonder, like, when did Dad get so gullible? It's not so much that Dad's gullible or diminished. It's that generational thing that Representative Williams had spoke about. They're a very trusting generation, and they want to help when people ask them questions. So our problem is building that firewall to protect him. So with Dad, he has to put all his mail and put it aside till I get out there. He doesn't take phone calls and all these different things. that we try to build ourselves, me, my brother, and sister. But it's a battle, and it's a constant battle. And I had heard some comments here earlier that I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on. We are very fortunate here that we have a very proactive district attorney who helps us with these issues. Scam Jam had mentioned, that Representative Cooper had mentioned, I also had a Scam Jam with the district attorney's office, with local police, and with PA Department of Banking and Securities. And I would urge all the other members to look into that as an avenue and a way of, like you had said, of getting out in front of it and providing information. So I just wanted to share that with the members, that it is something that is very valuable, because you may hear the term Scam Jam but not really know what it is. And I'm thankful for our district attorney for helping us with that. So thanks, Josh.
Thank you. Does any other member have any questions? I'm going to ask a few here at the end, but I wanted to make sure everyone else had a shot. So first off, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. And Representative Williams touched on this, but I think it's important to note that the fraud situation and people getting tricked is certainly not exclusive to seniors. I have a personal story that I want to share because I have a question based off of it. About 5 or 6 years ago, it was a very sophisticated email, a phishing expedition, I guess they call them now, phishing for information, that looked very real. And they were asking is for a subscription. I think it was my Fitbit or something. And I needed to up my subscription, and they got my credit card information. And I realized about 20 or 30 minutes later that it wasn't real, so I canceled my credit card, and the problem was solved. But one of the things that, one of the negatives of that situation was that I never trusted anything again. And so about 2 or 3 years later, I was getting text messages about a $13 hospital bill that I had to pay. And I needed to reach out to this person. I was like, well, I'm not getting caught on a scam again. So I ignored it, and I kept ignoring it. And it was like $13, there's no way, right? And then I go to buy a house, and my credit score is like 540. And I go, how is my credit score this low? Like, what in the world? And sure enough, that $13 hospital bill, which it turned into a $43 hospital bill because of the late fees and stuff, ended up causing me headache and delaying the purchase of my home by a couple of months. We ended up clearing it up, and it was no big deal. It was a small fee. But is there a place to go where you can ask the question, like, how do you go about determining what's real and what's not real? Like, is there someone that you could talk to, reach out to? Because frankly, I don't trust anybody on whether I'm getting a text message, even if it's in the mail, even if it's anywhere. Is there somewhere to go to get something verified?
I'm going to reiterate a little bit before what I said, that you should encourage the people in your district to call the DA's office or call your local police, because they can help you. If you get a call or you get something that feels a little bit unsettling, and you and I have a lot of kids between the two of us, Mr. Chairman, so it could have been just one appointment from one of them that was that $13 fee, so I understand that. Also, my daughter has like a 25-cent fee from buying a bag of chips at lunch, and she wasn't supposed to do that, so it's a matter of principle, but I keep getting called about it. But really, I think it's about recognizing that people that are in elected office or people that work for your county or your local government are really here to help. We have to get people to know they can call us, that we're accessible, and that we're available. So call my office, ask to talk to a county detective, you'll get somebody. If you don't, let me know that someone didn't get somebody. Call your local police, they can help you follow up on that. They can help anybody of any age. Otherwise, it's very difficult. I mean, if you call a federal agency, it's going to take a lot longer. I think that our county detectives do a great job, and you may run into someone in your district that's calling in about a particular scam that 5 other people already called the DA's office about or called the local police about. Now we're on to something. Now that it's something that we can work with local police and state police, and the state police are excellent in that regard. Even call a local state police barracks and ask to talk to a crime investigator. Everything's available to the people in our community, but I think it's really our responsibility to let everyone know that we're available and how to call.
Just a quick comment from the courts, that regardless, even if you set up a place that you can go as a resource to tell you what's a scam and what's not, this, in my experience from the bench, is a fluid, moving target at all times. So the minute you start calling on this one scam and it's verified, they're already moving on to 5 or 6 other scams, and they're starting to infiltrate the AI field, and that's manipulating because those computers are analyzing how you will react based on your social media accesses and what you look at, your news feeds, who you contact, who you, and it will mimic anything that appears like you will open it up and engage it. And unfortunately, not trusting is always better, as Reagan would say, to verify first what you're engaging in before you move forward in that communication or, I guess, commitment because of the problem with that fluid circumstance. Because every time I get a case, by the time it litigates and winds through 2 years later, there's a whole set of new cases that come from a totally different source. And the same result happens is that we make our mandatory referrals to law enforcement, and they're aware of it most of the time, but I'm already behind the 8 ball on the new case because of how slow the courts are in getting the litigation.
It's definitely true that the era of having a cousin who's a prince in some faraway land is gone, right? We don't see those types of scams anymore. But that was it seems like the initial scam. I just curiosity here, who are these people? Are they international actors? Are they local actors? Is it a mix? Like, who are these people that are performing these scams?
In my experience, it's a mix, but a lot of times we don't know. When it comes to cryptocurrency, we can't track it. We don't know. When it comes to a lot of fraud that our seniors experience, if they get a local contractor who's a bad actor, now we can start to follow that. But it's very difficult. It just is, and it's always a moving target. But it's with any crime. It's not specific to what we're talking about today. You look at the sophistication of people who move drugs into our country and into our communities. It's just like the judge was saying, by the time we catch up, they're ahead of us again. But we're on to them, so I don't want any criminals to think we're not on to them. But they become more and more sophisticated and advanced as we progress as well. So it's constantly trying to catch up.
And there is no borders relative to these scammers because they live in a crypto world of computers and that are in the ether. So you may have a group in Russia that's working with a group in Nigeria that's working with a group in Indochina, and they are all networking and taking a piece of everything that they scam, and they're diverting it out, and they're becoming more efficient in operating together to bring down citizens of wealth in the United States, citizens of wealth in the United Kingdom, Europe. I mean, there are primary places in the world that they're going after. They're not necessarily going after villages in Kenya. I mean, they know where they're targeting, they know specifically who they're targeting, and then they're operating to a very stealthy outcome. And that's why it's so imperative that the FBI and the federal resources to work with local law enforcement, the Attorney General's office here in the Commonwealth, to try and work together. And I know that in the former U.S. attorney that's now at Pitt, and his name's escaping me, I think Hickton, Attorney Hickton, right, is well known around the world for being one of the cutting edge people relative to these scams and computer circumstances. And reaching out to him even through the legislature or having him come testify before this committee might actually bring you up to speed much better than we can.
Thank you. Is there anything that other jurisdictions, other states are doing, other countries are doing that we ought to be doing in Pennsylvania that could help with this situation?
Well, I can't speak to other jurisdictions outside of the Commonwealth right now because that's pretty much where my wheelhouse is, but we meet frequently with the Pennsylvania District Attorneys Association, and they're a tremendous resource. I'd be happy to go back to them for our next meeting and talk a little bit more about, we haven't talked about this particular issue in some time, so maybe we come back to it and we can get back, I can get back to you with a further report of what we're seeing across the Commonwealth. But when I talk with my colleagues, we're seeing a lot of the same things a lot of the same things across the board because of AI and because of technology, and that's really the world that they're operating in.
Thank you. I really appreciate this panel coming and talking to us. We are going to move on now to our second panel. If we just give a minute to get everything in order here. Our second panel is Empowering Seniors at Home. Dr. Toto, a professor and director and doctor of clinical science and occupational therapy at the University of Pittsburgh. And before we get going, I would like to recognize former state representative Bob Brooks is here with us today. Representative Brooks, good to see you. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Andrew.
Just push it. That's all.
Doctor, thank you for your patience. The floor is yours, and 3 to 5 minutes testimony, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. I guess the question is if there's an N of one, am I really a panel? What's the singular term for a panel? I don't know. Thank you for inviting me today. I'd like to tell you a little bit about me. I think I'm probably the unknown of the panel for the day. My name is Pam Toto, and I'm an occupational therapist. I'm also a professor and a researcher at the University of Pittsburgh, and I am part of a program called the University of Pittsburgh Healthy Home Laboratory, which is a community university partnership that's tackling, implementing, and inventing ways to help keeping older adults in their homes and age in place. I also am a lifelong Pennsylvanian. So I grew up in Washington County in what I always say is the real Mon Valley in Donora, Pennsylvania, and I've lived in Murraysville, so I'm a Westmoreland County resident for almost 30 years. So I'm passionate about this topic and also committed because it affects the people that I love and where I'm from. When we think about aging in place is more than just about living in your home or having a hospital bed in your dining room. It's about being independent, it's about being safe, it's about having choice, and it's about being able to participate in your home and in your community. So whether it's being able to go to Twin Lakes for the 4th of July, Arts and Crafts Fair, or attending your Mother of Sorrows Sunday service, it's all of those pieces as well. What we know is that most older adults, the numbers go from 80% to 99% of older adults wish to age in their homes for the rest of their lives. And that option should be available for all older adults. Now, the fun thing about what I like to talk about is that everyone wants to age in place, but it's also the most economical place for people to age in place. We heard the last panel talk about the cost and the challenges right now of helping people to be in acute care hospitals or to be in skilled nursing facilities. And so those are the most expensive places to care for older adults. And so it seems like a win-win and something that we can all work around, this idea of finding and implementing, because there are solutions that we can help people better stay in their homes. So it's what they want to do. It's what we want to do for for ourselves and for our loved ones, and it's also a more economical strategy. So one of the things we know is that for probably the past 50 years, about 4 to 5% of older adults end up in skilled nursing facilities, and you're more likely to end up in a skilled nursing facility if you reach the age of 85. So your likelihood actually doubles once you hit the age of 85. So even if that were the choice, we don't have the resources with the growing population of older adults that we have to be able to even sustain 4%. I mean, 4% is a crisis. And so the positive is that we have some different strategies and some ways to think about things now that we can start implementing to be more effective at allowing people to stay in their homes and communities for their entire lives. There are some gaps that exist in helping older adults remain safely and independently in their homes. So the way we've been doing things, we can't sustain. We heard today at the previous panel that we don't have enough home health care workers to actually meet the existing current needs. So if you take those percentages of what we expect the population to grow to, there is no way we can help people do things the way we've always done things. We also know from science that the number one reason why you do end up in a nursing home is because of unmet needs. So when you have that gap between I need something and there's no solution, you end up in the hospital, and then you end up in a institutional care. We also know that depending on where you live in Pennsylvania, your needs are different. So for instance, in urban settings, for instance, in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, transportation is not the number one reason or the number one challenge to aging in place. But I can tell you in Westmoreland County for sure that transportation is one of the biggest barriers people have. They can't get to the grocery store. They can't get to their doctor's appointments. The services that we do offer are not always adequate. Even if we do have a service in place, they may have to be ready an hour and a half before they have to get there, and the person can pick them up an hour and a half later. It turns a 1 hour appointment into an 8 hour day. And does your loved one have the endurance to sustain that? We know that there's less volunteers to provide existing resources that we do offer older adults. I had the pleasure of interacting with the Penn Hills Service Association 2 weeks ago, and they told me that they're delivering Meals on Wheels less frequently because they don't have drivers anymore to deliver the meals. So instead of 5 days a week, now they can only deliver meals three days a week. So the services that we do have that we think work, we don't have the personnel, which were older adult volunteers, can't sustain those services. We also know that we have limited resources for caregivers of older adults who have dementia. So the dementia population is also growing, and many of us are care partners or caregivers, and there's limited resources. We don't have ways to keep our loved ones in their homes and maybe be able to caregive from a distance. We know that injurious falls remain the number one reason of permanent disability in older adults. So it's not about the post-acute experience, but it's about preventing those falls and reducing those falls and still allowing people to be independent. So it's not about eliminating their activities. If we bubble wrap someone, yes, they won't fall, but that's also not the choice of older adults. They don't want to be bubble wrapped for the rest of their lives. They want to live and participate in everyday activities. Because of that, we know that we have a limited number of preventative programs. So what we tend to do is we tend to solve problems by taking away the activity of the older adult. And I'll give a good example to lead into the last couple points that I want to make. So if my grandmother or my grandfather or an aunt and uncle goes to their primary care physician and they say, I'm starting to have trouble, I can't bathe myself anymore, I'm really having difficulty with bathing. What we've historically done as a society is we put a care worker in there. We have someone do it for them. They come in. It's usually not very pleasant. If you wanted to have someone come in at 2:30 in the middle of your day and they say, okay, here's your bathing time, and you're like, I'm already up and dressed. But that being said, that's what we've always had as our solution. We put a do-for service in. What if instead we were able to take that person who's complaining about having difficulty with bathing, we were able to give them 2 grab bars, a shower chair that actually fits in their tub shower, not one that's too wide or too narrow. We have someone install it for them, and we give them a couple training sessions. Bam. What happens is they don't need an aide. They're actually able to continue to be independent on their own. But we don't think that way. We haven't had to historically. I'm asking the committee to think about supporting ways that we can do these things now. We know that in Pennsylvania and across the country, homes are not ready for people to age in place. So across the United States, about 10% of homes are age-appropriate ready. Guess where the worst location is? The Northeast. So in general, about only 5.8% of homes are age-ready. We know what Pittsburgh, and I should say Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania homes look like, right? We have the Pittsburgh, we call it a Pittsburgh potty. I don't know what they call it in other parts. The toilet in the basement, narrow stairs, no bathroom on the first floor, low lighting. So the fact is that there are services already in Pennsylvania that can help people to make their homes age-ready, but they don't know how to access them. And it's clunky, the process. Maybe I have to pay up front, or maybe I have to find my own handy person. And how do I know who I trust that handy person? No one, right? So we have limited services to get their homes ready. They don't know how to access services, and then we have limited trained people to actually make those changes. So those services are out there, so I'm not asking for us to create new services that don't exist. I'm talking about coordinating a plan and committing together to really change the paradigm of how we think about caring for seniors who start to have difficulties. The only other piece I want to mention, because it was so prevalent in the last discussion, is digital literacy. So we do know, technology is a double-edged sword. It's good and it's bad. And with the technology gains that we're having every day, there really is no reason why people can't age in place. The services exist. But we know that older adults have more likelihood of Wi-Fi in their homes now. It's starting to get better, but they're less likely to use it for like health promoting behaviors and things like that. They will use it for Facebook, but they don't know about being able to monitor your blood pressure or check your oxygen levels or have a telehealth visit with your primary care physician. And we also need training for technology that is better designed for older learners. My own children who are adults, I think that my iPhone is not intuitive. I would like directions. And they said, Mom, you don't need directions. It just tells you what to do. But I can't ever figure out what to do. I have to actually Google how to use my phone. So I guess I will close in just saying that I think this is a topic that we can all kind of get around. And it's if we have the privilege of aging to that stage of life, these challenges are going to happen to all of us. We have age-related changes. Our bodies wear out, so the longer we live, even without disease or illness, there's just certain things that happen. And we know that this is what people want, and we also know that it's a less expensive way to provide the best outcome. And so with that, I think I will close, and I will take questions on whatever topics.
I'm still trying to figure out what the singular of panel is.
I don't know.
I'm going back to is it pani? Like
I don't know.
The Latin form.
I sat back there
pacta?
for an hour thinking, what is the singular of panel?
Representative Cooper.
Dr. Toto, thank you for coming and sharing what you did. I mean, I know that in my office we receive, calls. People were looking for help, and you send them into the Department of Aging, and they are still lost. Do you have recommended resources or thoughts about where we could have somebody call to get the information to Age in Home, or is that something we really need to have a better system to create here in Harrisburg?
That's a great question. I think it's probably a combination of things. So there's such a diverse challenges depending on where you live, so suburban, urban, rural, that it would be hard to have a one-stop shop. So that would be, I think, the first thing. So I do think it could be county specific, but also I think starting in a singular place, there are different states that are doing different creative things, like having a concierge who's someone who helps you through that. So, I mean, if I could call one phone number and what we do right now is we say, oh, here's 4 programs you can try. And then we leave it to them to be able to pursue those next 4 programs. I think if we could have a phone number or a place to call, and it would sort of divert you through a flow that would get you to the end place of where you need to be. If you make it to the age of 85 to 90, you're a resilient human being. So we underestimate what older adults who are motivated to age in place can do, but we do need to provide those paths. I mean, how many times where you get frustrated or someone will get back to you? I mean, we just need to have a smoother path to be able to help people figure out how to access those resources and be very transparent on what is the upfront piece. Like, do I need to pay for something myself? Do I have to find someone to make those changes? Or are there services that could provide that for me ahead of time?
Thank you.
Sure.
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And 2 very different question areas for you, because your testimony was great and you covered a number of topics. But earlier this week, I was listening with our county transportation provider, and he was also touching on the challenges that there are current restrictions for individuals that use public transportation because they can only use them, let's say, for a doctor visit, but they can't combine doctor with a grocery trip to then get their medications, and it's so restrictive that it makes it very challenging for seniors to move about in those areas. Can you touch on your perspective of that, or how could we tweak that to improve it?
Sure. So, so some of those rules get put in place because with the idea of prevention of abuse, right? Like, so if I say I need a doctor's appointment and then I want to get my nails done, or I want to go to bingo and I want to go to the grocery store and get my medicine, you know, that's a whole day trip. That's me having a kind of a chauffeur for the day, right? So, so I think the intention behind some of those rules was really to provide the essentials, but we're learning more like what are essential, like social isolation and loneliness is a huge influencer of poor health in older adults. It actually leads to physical illness. So who, you know, technically, who's to say, like, if I can go to bingo once a week and see all my friends and socialize and do the things that I've always done, maybe that down the line that actually keeps me healthier. So I think we have to probably come up with some flexibility in some of those things. The other question is if the doctor's office is in one place and then my grocery store is in another place, that's actually that's three-stop shop, right? Because the driver has to wait for me till my doctor's appointment's over. So, I mean, I think we could be creative. I think offering maybe some alternative sources in places that have buses. Again, I live in Murraysville. It's you know, there are buses, but it's a hard system. So in places where there's buses, that allows older adults to have more choice. So for instance, in Allegheny County, it's free to ride the PAT buses. So if you feel comfortable using it, which is a different story, you don't have to wait for like OPT or Access or one of the state's systems, because you could go on your own. So I think the answer is probably, again, specific to the county, but also I think that we need to open our eyes and thoughts about how to do those things. A lot of times, could we have a community transportation where it is a grocery store bus? One of the nice things here at Redstone Highlands is Redstone Highlands offers transportation for a lot of different activities, and you're right here. But if I live in my own home 2 miles down the road, I don't have that same opportunity. So I think it's probably a mix of looking at solutions that work for that area, and perhaps the older adult does have to have, like, you know, I don't like to grocery shop on Saturday mornings, but let's say I like to grocery shop on Saturday mornings, maybe I have to change my habits and routines and shop on Tuesday afternoon, because that's when the transportation's available. So I think it has to be a give and take. We can't give everyone exactly what they want, but I do think we could offer more solutions.
Great, and two very different questions,
yes,
as I was touching on. The other one is in the advanced technology. You mentioned telemedicine. It's a hot button politically. Mm-hmm. Everybody kind of agrees to it, but Pennsylvania's failed to enact it into law. Last session, Governor Wolf vetoed telemedicine. My mom recently had a stroke, and so some things, like the app is fantastic, and she can, or my dad can, you know, use the app to communicate with doctors, but neurology now says, no, we can't do telemedicine visits because that's not an option for preventative treatments. Can you touch on the benefit of Pennsylvania finally, like, sitting down and implementing a stable reimbursement system for telemedicine? Because it seems like such an opportunity for seniors, for mental health, for addiction recovery, but we haven't been able to get it over the finish line. And like, what you see as the way for us to, like, just allow it to become a stable form. It's been operating under like a COVID waiver, and then we extended it in some twisted way, but it's not as reliable as it could be.
Right. So there's a lot already happening in telehealth. People who are able to work outside of like traditional government. For instance, the VA hospitals nationally are exploding with telehealth opportunities. I actually spoke to an occupational therapist today who works for a for-profit and nonprofit program that targets veterans and also former police officers and officials, and it's really targeting health and wellness and well-being from a mental health aspect, and it's all delivered through telerehab. So I'm also familiar with a chronic pain program that's happening actually in Pennsylvania right now that's wholly delivered with an interprofessional team, including a chronic pain physician, a psychologist, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, a dietitian. It's 100% delivered through telehealth. So the evidence is it can work. It can't work for everyone. If I have I think I have appendicitis. Actually, my son had his appendix out. We tried telehealth. They said, we can't tell if he has an appendicitis. We have to have him come in. So we did, and good thing that we did. So I don't know that it can solve every problem, but it could sure mitigate a lot of problems. What we want to do is there's a lot of different factors that do play into it. In the case of older adults, do they have Wi-Fi access? Do they have access to use it? Do they feel comfortable using it? Do they know how to use it? So that's one piece, the digital literacy and the digital access. And then there's also some licensure laws that get tricky. So for instance, I'm licensed to practice in the state of Pennsylvania, but I can't deliver a service in Ohio, and I can't deliver a service in West Virginia. So if a client who frequents the hospitals in Pennsylvania happens to live in West Virginia and I do a telehealth visit, I have a little bit of a challenge because I'm not licensed to deliver a service where they live. But if they came to Pennsylvania, I can treat them. So I think there's a lot of pieces. I think we're past the time of saying it doesn't work. It would be much more beneficial for and I'd be happy to share more, but some evidence-based programs that do work, maybe start small and be able to remove some of those barriers. It's not going away.
It seems like in the pockets where they can self-control, telemedicine has been demonstrated to be very helpful. But when we talk about the general population of seniors and their various plans, it's a medical reimbursement, like how those facilities are able to bill for the telehealth visit for regular people that don't fall into a specialized category. Right. You know, has your office, and I know the medical billing is a completely different animal than the technology to integrate it, but it seems like there's a reimbursable component that hasn't been finalized.
You know, there are reimbursable components, and there are ways to do it if people want to do it. We know that even nationally and in Pennsylvania right now, for instance, more older adults are in Advantage plans than in traditional straight Medicare. So some of the barriers have been more in traditional Medicare benefits versus like an HMO or an Advantage plan. And we know that, for instance, older adults a majority of older adults in Pennsylvania are actually in Advantage plans now. And Advantage plans get a certain lump sum of money, which as long as it's allowed. So there's a reimbursement issue, but you could also argue, like if it's not a legal issue, I could say that an insurer could be incentivized, right? If it works better and the person stays healthier and stays out of the hospital and doesn't end up in a nursing home, it's a win-win, right? So I mean, I think that it's really how we package it. Like, do we want change or do we not want change? The other thing is everything that I've spoken about, one of the other challenges is that as a society, first of all, we don't like prevention. We're all notorious about it. We know we should eat better, sleep better, have less stress, and we don't do it. And it doesn't, just because we turn 75 doesn't mean we suddenly have this epiphany and we're going to be so, now I'm going to be a preventative person. But we also don't like to think about our own vulnerabilities. So sometimes when we offer preventative programs, people don't accept them. So even if like all the rules change and telehealth becomes an easy way to do business, not every senior is going to, or every older adult is still going to take up and use that benefit just because they don't want to change. We don't like to change. Humans don't like to change. So I think it's probably a multifaceted solution, but it's already happening, and it's happening with good results. And so I think that could be a nice roadmap to, instead of spending time saying why we can't do it, like, let's talk about how to do it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Doctor, for your testimony. I would just mention, and you may be aware of it, that the Shapiro administration is working on a 10-year plan.
Yes.
For our aging population. If you've not been involved, you should be.
Thank you. I went to the kickoff meeting in Allegheny County in June. It was fantastic.
Good, because I know Rep. Cooper and I have attended some of the listening sessions, and they've been valuable. So I mentioned my dad has Alzheimer's, and I want to do everything possible to keep him at home and prevent him from going into a home. But I know from a family history of Alzheimer's that's difficult because they have a lot of needs. Right. So outside of personal savings, are you aware of any financial assistance that is being made for individuals like this that will have more needs to age at home?
That's a great question. You know, what's kind of interesting to me, so I'm a clinician, I'm a professor, and I'm a researcher. I'm not I think I'm sometimes a policy advocate by need, but not by plan. I think that in Pennsylvania right now, it's a better place to grow old if you have very limited funds or if you have a lot of money. So I think that group in the middle is really struggling. So we have a lot of, for people who are dual eligible or people who qualify for Medicaid, there's an incentive and there's a lot of services to help people age in place, and that menu of options is expanding exponentially. So there is technology that can lock someone's door, let us know if they opened their medicine cabinet, turn off their oven, turn off their stove automatically, monitor whether they're getting up to hydrate every hour. But you know, those technologies cost money. And so I find that if you're, if you qualify and you're nursing facility eligible and you're a dual eligible person, suddenly all of those pieces kind of come at you. And if you have long-term care insurance or you have financial resources to be able to pursue some of those things. A lot of my research actually targets the in-between. And I think it's probably personal too, because my own family members are in that personal piece, so we don't have services for that in between. We're currently implementing a program called Capable. It's a national program that costs about it involves occupational therapists, nurses, and a handyman, and up to $1,300 of equipment or home services, whatever the person needs. And it's a nationally proven program that for about $3,000, it saves about $30,000 a year with older adults who would otherwise end up in a nursing home or have a hospitalization. So my research is actually targeting the exact population you're talking about, not the population on one end or the other. And so I think we need more demonstration projects like that. We need more resources for people who, like yourself or like your father, who wish to have him age in place, but how do we access those resources?
It's almost like we need to offer those people an incentive to age it at home, some type of incentive.
In my experience, they want to. They just don't. They don't know how.
Of course.
They don't know how. It's amazing when we give people the solutions a little bit, not a lot of solution, and a temporary. So again, we don't want to give people maintenance support for forever. Then we run into the same problem we have right now. But can we give people targeted support to get to them in that next level? And once we give someone, do we recheck in a year? Because my needs might change. So January, you gave me this program and it worked, and by the next March, maybe my arthritis has worsened, or maybe I have more cognitive impairment. So I think we need to be proactive and also individualized.
Agreed. Thank you.
Sure.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday we were in Fayette County talking about the lack of broadband and wireless, and I was trying to do research on one of our witnesses, and I ironically couldn't get to the internet. So I'm a little bit laughing today as you talk about Googling how to use your iPhone. Your children's head are going to explode. I have an Android specifically to spite my children and their insistence that iPhone is the way to go. I'm going to ask you the hardest question that can be asked by a legislator. I love coming to these policy committee hearings, especially from all the way across the state from where I live, because I always learn something, and especially like being in people's districts and hearing what they're going through and the ability that I have to relate it back home. I mean, we're going through the same thing in the opposite corner of the state. I'm very compelled by this observation of yours that if we just made the home a little bit better for our seniors, they could take care of a lot of their own problems without having care. Because as you know, statewide right now, we're having just a miserable experience with in-home care, both from a lack of the workforce and a lack of an ability to fund it. Here's the hard question. If I accept the premise of the suggestion that we can improve their at-home existence and encourage them to stay there, what can we do to make that happen? Is it just simply a matter of money, or do we need a change of policy?
Obviously, more money is always it happens everywhere. But I don't think more money is the number one solution. I really think it is making services that exist more accessible. For instance, there is a home modification benefit in the state of Pennsylvania. It's underused by older adults. It's underused, and how do they get it, and how do they access it? So I think creating easier channels for some of the, I think it's easiest to start with the lowest hanging fruit. Let's start with the services we already have. Don't add to the budget. Let's just talk about taking the services we have and making sure that people are using them and more successfully. Just because a budget is $25,000, let's say, to remodel my home, doesn't mean I need $25,000. Let's make sure the right people are making the decisions. I've been involved in situations where someone can do it, so they do a whole new bathroom. They get rid of the tub shower and they put in a whole new walk-in shower. And I can put in a shower chair that's $79, 2 grab bars that are $18 each, and teach someone in 3 sessions how to use that. And I just saved us $24,000. So making sure that we're...
And gave them dignity.
And gave them dignity.
Yeah.
That's right. I should have said that from the get-go. This is the whole piece. So I think... So I think we should start with looking at the resources we have right now and making sure that people have access to them, understand how to use them, and that they're being used correctly. I think then the next step would lead us to where are the gaps in services. Again, there's a mindset that we just solve problems by taking away the activity for the older adult. That's a shift. That's harder. But so we have to start referring when people start to have difficulties. What can we do? What can we do to make their homes and train them? So just making my home more accessible. But there are things we can do. For instance, there are things we can do that we don't even have to train someone to be able to be more independent. The number one solution that's happening across the United States to help aging in place, the number one, is better lighting. The Housing and Urban Development Authority has poured money into home modifications nationally to help people age in place. The data that's coming out of that, I want to say it's probably been about $75 million in projects. The number one thing that's helping people not fall, which then keeps them in their home, is by improving their lighting. And if you put a better light bulb in, or you put a smart light bulb in that automatically goes on when I go to the bathroom at night, now I don't even have to learn how to use it. You don't even tell me, just put the light bulb in, and then I have better lighting. So I would say, to answer your question, I don't think we need to start with more funding. I think we should start with looking at what we have, and I think it really ties in well. I'm in love with, the idea of a 10-year master plan on aging and disability is very exciting to me, obviously. But I think that's a great place for us to do it. Let's really find out what we have, what we're using, could we use it better, and then let us look for the gaps, and then look for technology or resources that maybe we even reallocate monies to things that are working more effectively or better. And then the third level, I think, would be, do we need more money up front, using the evidence that tells us on the flip side that we save money? Like Medicaid is a great example. There's no more expensive place to live than in a nursing home. So for all of our consumers who are dual eligible and end up in a nursing home, it's the most expensive place to provide care. That's why we have waiver programs, and we have all these different life programs that are happening, because those are less expensive. The life programs, if you're familiar with them, which are PACE programs nationally, is another great example. They keep people in their homes 24/7, less expensive, and the people are nursing home eligible, and they keep them in their homes less expensively than being in a nursing home. And I'm not against nursing homes. There's a place for nursing homes, and they are wonderful places for, they improve life for many people. But again, that 4% number scares me, given the population and the way we're going.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, I have a couple questions here at the end. Anyone else have any questions? Go ahead. Go.
Just such great information. Technology-wise, for some of those home health meds, you can now use your phone to do your blood pressure stuff. Are there one or two of those things that you may recommend that, because Christmas season is coming, and some of those things are not that expensive,
Right.
that allow people who maybe don't live local, or,
Right.
What might be that one or two items?
So that's a great question. I'm kind of bullish, even though I'm sitting here talking about technology. There's so many low-tech solutions that can help people age in place, like improving their lighting, fixing their doorbell, putting tightening their handrail, that I'm notorious in my Healthy Home Lab. When I work with the engineers, I'm like, that's too fancy. We don't need that. So like, it's kind of ironic that you're asking me for the tech solutions. So there are some health monitoring devices. I find that most older adults don't want the health monitoring devices. Their children want them to have the health monitoring devices, and their physicians want them to have. So there are, automatic blood pressure cuffs and automatic scales that you can, if you have a high risk for congestive heart failure, one of the first signs is that you start gaining weight. So being able to get on a scale, and now you see that you've suddenly gained 8 pounds, and it's not Thanksgiving, so it's not because you ate too much. That could be a sign that something's going on. I think there's any of those health monitoring devices are kind of nice right now, and they're not that expensive. What I really think has the potential, even though it also could introduce this whole scamming that we talked about, is I think that Alexa is a really great tool for a lot of reasons for older adults. Nationally, voice technology is kind of like the #1 thing that's helping older adults age in place. So we just recently worked with a client who doesn't want to wear one of those safety, like a fall safety. She doesn't want to wear it because she lives in a vulnerable community, and she doesn't want someone to see that she's wearing something around her neck that makes her look vulnerable. She's also a caregiver for her grandson, so she doesn't want him to think that she's vulnerable as well. But having an Amazon Alexa or a similar device where she could call somebody, you can't call 911 through Alexa, but you could call your personal designated person. So being able to have that if she fell or she had an injury was much more attractive to her. So I would actually say Alexa, because Alexa allows you to do a lot of other things. I think that's probably the #1 ticket.
In a shower bar.
And a shower bar. Well, the problem is not everyone needs one in the same place. So, again, we try to blanket, give everybody the same thing, and we're all very individual people. So I think that not everybody needs the same thing. So being able to know, is it a vertical, a horizontal, or a diagonal grab bar would be the other part.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So every April, May, June, as legislators, we get barraged with people that want to talk with us, and the main premise of the discussion is a crisis and why they need more funding. It just kind of seems how it goes as we prep up for the budget. And part of our job as legislators, budgeting is nothing more than prioritizing and figuring out what's important and really determining where is the crisis. And in this field, in aging, it seems as though there is a legitimate crisis. Mr. Dixon talked about it earlier. I've talked to my nursing homes in Beaver County and Washington County, and just how dealing with a labor force, what they can afford to pay the labor force, it just seems like an impossible situation that people that are caring for our seniors, some of our most vulnerable citizens, are just in a very difficult spot. I don't know if this is more post-COVID driven, or if it was probably actually before COVID. It was building up to it. I think COVID probably accelerated the problem just because of the workforce, people dropping out, and stuff like that. But what has changed over the course of the last 10, 20 years to where we've gotten to a point where this is a crisis? Is it demographics? Is it expectations? Are people just living longer, and on the other side, people aren't having as many kids, so there's less, revenue, whatever? What's the situation that's changed that has put us into this place?
That's a great question, and you kind of hit the nail on the head on a few of the answers already. So we 50 years ago, 75 years ago, 100 years ago, we did not live as long as we live now. Our healthcare system is fantastic at keeping us alive. We used to even younger people. So people who are aging with a disability from the get-go, they are people who did not survive. And so we're a different society than we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's going to continue to be that way. We live longer. Unfortunately, our healthcare system always targets our impairments and fixes us as best they can, and then you're on your own. So we've figured out how to stay alive longer, but we don't know how to live well. So the whole idea of quality of, not even just quality of life, I mean, the quality of life we all want, but we're just talking about having your needs met, your basic needs met to be able to age safely and independently. So I think the crisis has always been around, but the population is just growing so much more rapidly that it's come to everyone's attention a little bit more. I also think about human rights, and I grew up in a pre-internet era. I was telling some of our graduate students that I had to go to the library to find a solution, and I had to actually buy books in college. No one buys books anymore, even if you require it, or they rent it. And so I think we had limited knowledge of how the rest of the world was living or how I could potentially live, and now we have instant information all the time. So, I mean, all of us, you have something wrong with you, I know that you Google it first before you even call your doctor or talk to your husband or wife. Right, it is. So I think we have more information, so we expect more. I think we should expect more, but we expect more, and we're living longer, and we have this growing population. So I don't think that we can always do things better. The way we did things wasn't bad, it's just the way we did things before doesn't work anymore. And not only does it not work anymore, now we have more options and more solutions than we ever had before. I think about something like dialysis. And I remember when I first graduated as a healthcare provider, what that meant. Like, you had to go to the clinic. I mean, now we offer so many different solutions. There's so much more flexibility if you have kidney issues and you need dialysis. There's so many different options now. It's like, so Pandora's box is open, and there's more solutions and more opportunities. So I think that it's probably a combination of what you're talking about. But you did make an interesting point. There are less care. There are less. Oh, that's what you said. Sorry. There are less informal caregivers than there used to be. So people had less children. So they used to have 7 children to help take care of mom or dad, and now they have less. Or we also have 2-income families now. So where one person maybe was a person who was not employed outside of the home and perhaps had more flexibility in their time to be able to help their loved one. We don't have that opportunity. We also used to always stay, especially in Pennsylvania, we used to stay where our families were. So we kept our family close, and now people move, our children live across the country, so now we're long-distance caregiving, which is much more prevalent than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. So all of the above.
Thank you.
Are you from a big family? You were smiling.
Well, I have 8 kids.
Okay, well, just because you have 8 doesn't mean they're going to take care of you.
I just need one. Yeah, I'm one of 7. My grandmother has 61 grandchildren.
You're an anomaly.
I am an anomaly.
Okay.
I'm well aware of that. I've been told that before in all kinds of different contexts. But thank you for being here.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
I think one of the things that we learned today, at least I learned as I was sitting here listening to the testimony, is we need to understand these issues better, and we should probably be looking into these issues more, whether it's funding, whether it's the scam issue, whatever it is. All of our districts, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, this needs to be a priority. And Representative Cooper, I appreciate your leadership on bringing these issues to our attention and having this hearing here. And I'll give you the floor to make some closing remarks, and then I will close out the hearing.
Thank you. I think we all learned a lot today, and we learned that we can do better. And I just want to thank you, Dr. Toto. And we're looking forward, for those of you who want to join us, we are going to head down to Pittsburgh and tour the Healthy Home Lab. And, you know, I'm looking forward to that, to even learn more about technology, and maybe Rep. Nelson, I'll be able to help you with your Christmas gifts. Again, thank you for everybody who came out today. I want to personally thank Chairman Kell's group. Dan and his technical team has been very instrumental. My legislative aide in the back, Robin Savage, for being here, and of course, John Dixon for allowing us to use this lovely facility. We appreciate, I hope we came across that we appreciate the older population. We recognize their value. We recognize that we can learn from them, and we also recognize that we need to we have a responsibility to help them age with confidence. And so, again, thank you everybody for your time today. I do want to mention we do have lunch to go. So please don't leave without that, or if you can stay and join us, you're more than welcome. Chairman Kell.
Thank you, Representative, and I will say we've done a number of these hearings now, and I do have a great staff. I think this is our 31st hearing, but who's counting? What makes a hearing exceptional is the testifiers and who they are and the people that are willing to come and share their perspective. I thought today we had a wonderful bunch of testifiers. So thank you very much, Representative Cooper. These issues are very serious. There's going to be a lot more conversation about it. I appreciate everyone being here and allowing us to use this facility. So until the next hearing, this committee is adjourned.